Are we on the air now?
Yes, we are.
Awesome. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We're excited that you're here. We're going to be talking about how to buy cars, and you know, it's such a great, huge purchase. But first, I'll introduce myself. I'm Bach. I am the head of social media for MoneyCrashers. MoneyCrashers.com is a site where we strive to educate individuals in making wise choices when it comes to financial and personal finance, and everything from credit and debt to investing, real estate, education, and obviously when it comes to making big purchases like buying a car. We are going to be talking with Bill Fay from Debt.org, Armand Almeida from CarsDirect, and Casey Bond, who is the managing editor of GoBankingRates.com, and I will go ahead and let each of you just give us a quick introduction before we jump into the questions. Casey, let's start with you.
Okay. So I'm Casey. Like she said, I'm the managing editor for GoBankingRates. So basically what GoBankingRates does is connect consumers with interest rates, the best interest rates on a variety of banking products, as well as news and tools and helpful content and everything from saving money to paying off debt to buying a car and those sorts of personal finance topics.
Great. Armand, let's go to you.
All right, my name is Armand. I'm the automotive editor here at CarsDirect, and basically what we do is we help connect buyers and sellers for new cars as well as used cars. We provide all the information that the potential buyer would need, in addition to guaranteed pricing, CarsDirect guaranteed pricing, meaning that if a buyer outfits a vehicle with all the options that they need or that they want, we guarantee them a price when they print out the page and either take it to the dealership or buy the vehicle through us.
Great, thank you. And Bill.
And I'm Bill Fay, and I drive a car, and I took out an auto loan to get it. I am a writer for Debt.org. It is an organization that deals with student loan debts, mortgage debt, car loan debt. We try to help people find a way to handle their finances if things have gotten out of hand.
Great, thank you everybody for the introduction. We're really glad to have you here today. Let's jump right into the questions. The first thing we're going to talk about is what is the #1 most important thing that people need to know before buying and shopping for a new car? Armand, if you want to get us started with that question.
Sure. The first thing that a buyer needs to know is they need to be realistic in regards to the budget and what they can actually afford. With the number of vehicles that are actually on the market, obviously the price range is pretty substantial. They just need to be very honest with themselves. Obviously, they need to figure out how much they can allocate in regards to auto loan payment, which includes other fees that they might not necessarily know right off the bat, like insurance, registration, etc.
Great, thank you. Bill, what do you think?
I would say that cars, I'm not keen on them being status symbols. I think they have the allure. A new car has the allure of a diamond ring where you say, "Oh wow, look at what I have," instead of, "Oh wow, what can I afford?" And I agree with Armand there that you need to be realistic about your budget, and a new car, unlike a diamond ring, it's going to be worth less. A few years from now when you get ready to get rid of it, hopefully the diamond ring is going to appreciate. This is not something that's going to be worth more for you over the course of time.
Great, thank you. And Casey?
Yeah, I think what a lot of people do when they're ready to buy a car is, it's super exciting to know that you're going to get one. And so you kind of go into the dealership or, wherever you're buying it from, not thinking about all the other costs that are associated with buying it. You're maybe like, oh, I can afford, a couple $100 a month for my payment. But one of the things people forget about is things like insurance. When I was getting ready to buy my first car, I had no clue that I would also kind of double my insurance payment on my car. So things like that. Maybe your gas expenditure is going to go way up if you're going from like a little import to a big SUV. Your gas expenditures are going to skyrocket. So it's really important to kind of sit and itemize all of the costs that are going to be associated with that purchase before you can really nail down how much you can truly afford to pay for a new vehicle.
So budgeting is super important, which is what all of you touched on. So when we're thinking about budgeting and building a budget, how does an auto loan play a part when you're building that budget? What are some aspects of it that really impact somebody's monthly or weekly budget when they're working on that before buying a car and thinking about getting an auto loan?
I can jump in there.
Thanks.
I think most people will recommend that your transportation costs don't exceed 20% of your income. And that's your actual take-home income, not just what's on your paycheck before all those taxes are taken out. But 20% is like a max. It's not really a recommendation, obviously. So obviously, it's going to come down to the person and what their expenditures are looking like on a month-to-month basis. But when you tally up things like your payment, your gas, your maintenance, all that kind of stuff, it really is dangerous when it starts to exceed that 20% mark.
You also need to, when you're making up that budget, you need to insert a line for a car payment. There's only about 20% of the people actually pay cash for a new car. So it better be a part of your monthly budget no matter where you stand. And I think that it's always good to put something in there that says, I'll put away money before I make this purchase. I'm going to put away enough to cover at least 20% of the cost of the car, so that you have enough as a down payment that you're not taking on more car and more in loan than what you can handle.
Armand, any thoughts? Or?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, if you look at the amount of money that you're willing to spend on a vehicle, you have to realize that sometimes, even though you can afford the car payment as well as the insurance and the fuel, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to that like level, to that limit. It's always a good idea to leave yourself a little bit of a cushion just in case. Cars today are extremely reliable, but like I said earlier, like the fuel economy, varies substantially from compact to SUV. It can really impact the amount that you're going to be spending on a monthly and an annual basis.
Agreed. So we'll go ahead and moving on to how can a person figure out what rate they're qualified to get when they are taking out an auto loan? Because it's a lot of people don't really understand how they qualify when it comes to auto loans. So if you guys have any thoughts on that?
It's just on your credit score. I mean, at least that's what I found out the last time I purchased the car. I didn't know my credit score going in. I wish I had taken advantage of. You can get a free credit score from any of the three leading credit score places, Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion. If I had done that before I went in, I wouldn't have let the dealer talk me into what sounded like a great rate when I really qualified for much. So before you go to the dealer, find out what your credit score is, and then they set the rates based on that, not because you're a nice guy who happens to have his wife with him ready to buy the car.
Another thing that's really helpful is you can actually get pre-approved, so you can actually get approved for a loan before you ever actually walk on that dealership floor and pick out your car. So then that way you kind of know ahead of time what's going to work and what's not, and you don't get stuck in that stuffy room with a really persistent salesperson who's, kind of convincing you on the spot that you should be buying a car. You already know ahead of time, and, this I can afford, this I can't. And then maybe you'll find out before you even start shopping, oh, actually my credit score is horrible and I shouldn't be buying a car right now. Then you can spend some time working on that first.
Great.
Yeah, another option is always if you can't necessarily afford a new car, you could always, consider buying a used car as well.
Okay, great. So when it comes to interest, how much interest is too much when considering different auto loan rates?
I think
today, right now, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I think right now some of the better rates are around as low as like 1.5%, upwards of maybe 4 or 5%. That's if you come in with really good credit. So I would say once you start veering away from the single digits, it gets just too expensive to make sense, especially because the car is such a depreciating asset. Really not an asset at all because you're never going to make a return on it. So it's really not worth paying interest much more than a few percent, I would say.
Okay. Armand?
I'd agree. Anything higher than 5% I think would be a little bit too high.
Okay.
We're seeing rates as low as 0. We're not necessarily seeing 0% interest anymore. Even for the most qualified buyers, the lowest we're seeing is 0.9. That's if the buyer has excellent credit, meaning like a score of 720 and above.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, the majority of the rates that we're seeing are anywhere realistically between 2 and 3%.
Okay.
And
Great.
that's for the vast majority of the people that qualify.
Right. Absolutely. Thanks. Bill, any thoughts?
I'm also known as the frugal guy, so I like the 0% interest. Unfortunately, as Armand said, there's not very many of us qualify for that. So I would think if you go past 5 or 6%, it means that your credit score is so low you probably don't belong here at buying a car at this time. You should be able to get something in the 3 or 4% if you have reasonable credit.
Great. We touched on this a little bit when we were talking about the budget, but how does a person figure out how much they can afford for their monthly payments?
Spreadsheets
Is there
are great.
any? I'm sorry?
Spreadsheets, I mean, you can be as simple as opening up Excel and kind of popping in your balance sheet there and figuring out exactly how much money you really have open.
Mm-hmm.
There's also like online calculators and things like that too.
I tried the online calculators, and it said that I could afford more than the car that I bought, which made me feel good. But that's really the easiest place to go is to just type into Google. No plug here for Google, of course, but how much can I afford? And you will see several sites that will tell you if your credit score is this, then you can afford that. And that's the easiest way to do it.
Search is a good benchmark anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if I take Google search results as the law, but yeah, definitely a good benchmark to start.
Great.
Yeah, we have a CarsDirect auto loan calculator. It gives you the, I guess, the maximum cost of a vehicle that you can afford if you were to finance or if you were to lease as well. Obviously, the lease, if you can't afford an Audi A4 or a 2014, you might actually afford to lease it. So that's another option as well.
Great. So that leads us into our next question of what are some of your favorite websites or tools that help consumers when they're car shopping?
GoBankingRates.com. Sorry, I had
Shameless plug.
Hey, that's what we're here for. If it's helpful, consumers need to know about it.
Right. Obviously, I'd list CarsDirect.com as one of the destination points if you actually want to research and learn a little bit more about the car. All our information, we get the information from the vehicle sites, but we also offer opinion and unique content to kind of like help guide, like the layman to the expert basically. And we also have like a blog, New Car Pricing Insider, that highlights the top incentives for a given week. Incentives we see all the incentives that come in. We see good pricing, we see bad pricing. So we kind of like sift all of that out and just basically, we surface the best deals out there on a nationwide basis. Meaning, if you're in California, you can get the same deal on a Corolla as if you lived in New York. We don't offer necessarily like the regional incentives, but again, more nationwide incentives. So we can kind of like cater to everybody.
Before we move on to the next question, MoneyCrashers.com, of course, also has articles that will help consumers and anybody that's doing research for various, anything from car shopping to auto loans to insurance. So our articles are extensive. But so let's talk about a situation where a parent is helping a teen buy their first car. Teen has no credit history. Should the parents shopping for an auto loan co-sign, and what tips would you give to parents who are helping their teens buy a car for the first time? They're helping them finance cars and kind of making the whole experience empowering for their teens, so the teens also get something out of it besides a new car.
I say don't do it. Just don't do it.
Don't do the cosigning?
I mean, oh my God. Thinking of myself as a teenager in a vehicle, if that vehicle were new and my mom's credit was dependent on me taking care of it, that's just a terrifying thought. I say if you want to be a nice parent and help your kid out with maybe buying something cash and you want to give them some money, that's cool. That makes you a nice parent. But I would never, ever cosign for a teenager.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
can tell by looking at the audience here, I'm probably a little older. I have a 21-year-old son that we recently did this with, and
That worked out for you.
and he is responsible enough that had we gone to the new car, which we weren't anywhere near a new car with him, we might have considered it. Probably not, but. If you start off with a used car that only costs, you know, $4,000 or $5,000, enough that he had to put money down and he had to take out a small loan for this, and so I think the total that it was left after he had made his down payment was about $2,000. It was enough that he had a 12-month loan. Is about what it came out to. So I didn't mind co-signing that with the understanding, with my hand around his neck, that you're going to pay this yourself. You know that, and he's responsible enough. But it was a good teaching lesson for him to make a monthly payment. He's starting to have to pay monthly for his apartment and for the other things. But this is an obligation where they're going to take something away from him if he doesn't make that payment. So I liked that, and the fact that it was really low made me feel like I should be comfortable enough to go ahead and co-sign with him.
That's a lot less scary. Couple grand.
Yeah.
Yes. New car, probably not happening. Not in my lifetime, anyway.
Armand, any thoughts?
I definitely agree. It's dependent, I guess. It depends on the price of the vehicle. I think, like in my instance, I start off with like a 1988 Toyota Corolla. I paid for it on my own, but I think it just depends. It depends on the parent. It depends on the teen as well. But generally speaking, no, I wouldn't.
Okay, great. So let's talk. You know, you've done your research. You have decided on the car you want to get. You're walking to the dealership. Let's talk negotiating tips. What are 3 of the most effective negotiating tips that you can give someone? Armand, let's start with you.
Well, the first negotiating tip I would say is never make a deal on your first visit, no matter what. Take some time after you get the initial price and you test drive the vehicle to walk away and do you know, your own primary research in regards to the pricing and the options. A lot of the times dealerships, when a shopper goes in, they always try to put you into another package or another option group that might not have necessarily been on your radar. They'll try to paint a picture as it being like an excellent deal and a great deal, but you always have an opportunity to go back home and do some more research. They might pressure you into saying, oh, this deal is only good for today, or we only have one on the lot. I wouldn't really put much stock into that. The second tip I would probably give, like a prospective buyer, would be to, I guess, to actually know what they want. Meaning, if you're shopping for a particular vehicle, know all the options that you want, and know that those options cannot be had on their own. We get a lot of questions from buyers looking for navigation systems. And oftentimes when you're shopping for a vehicle, the buyer really doesn't know that navigation system comes bundled with a whole bunch of other options, meaning that they don't have the option just to get the navigation. They have to get the sunroof, they have to get the spoilers, they have to get everything else. So know exactly what you want, do your homework, and I guess the third tip, I can't really think of a third tip. There's 2.
Okay, thanks.
I like Armand's step about my only good move during car buying is to get up and walk away. And I visited, I think, 7 or 8 dealerships, and each time I said, this is what we want, and the guy gave me a price, and I said, no, I told you, I don't have that kind of money. And I got up and walked away, and the price went down at all 7 dealerships. The price went down. As soon as I walked away, and I know you're not supposed to tell them I'm going to buy a car, but I did. I walked in and I said, I'm going to buy a car today. It might be from you, it might be somewhere else. And I let them play their song that they wanted to say, well, it has this, that, and the other thing. And then as soon as I got walked away, the price went down. In one case, it went down by $2,500, and I walked away from that too. And they want you right there. They want you to make a decision that you don't have to make. You have the money, not them. So I agree with Armand that the best move is get up and walk.
Another thing I'll point out is car salesmen always want to focus in on that monthly payment. It's all about how low can you get my monthly payment, and that is the most dangerous way to go about it, because hey, you can have a really low monthly payment, but maybe it's going to mean you take 10 years to pay it off, and obviously that only works out for the dealer, not you. So get away from that whole mentality about I need a low monthly payment, and really stick with an overall budget that you want to hit, and then kind of work your way back from there.
So Casey, you just touched on something about monthly payments and terms. So there are many options. You know, you can finance it for 12 months, 36 months. What is the maximum that you would recommend to someone who is going to be deciding on a financing term when they're buying a new car? What's the most cost-effective, you know, the maximum amount of months that you should finance a car for?
I mean, the longer term you go, the more expensive it's going to be, and then the more danger there is of becoming upside down on the loan, which is where you owe more money on the car than it's actually worth, which isn't really a problem if you're going to have that car forever, but people like to, you know, trade in and upgrade, and if you have a car that's worth, you know, $8,000, but you owe $10,000 and you want to upgrade, you're going to have to, you know, just shell out an extra $2,000 out of pocket. So I would say about 60 months is kind of pushing it. I think that's like the longest term, maybe a little longer than that, depending on the actual circumstances of what you're buying. But I've heard of things as ridiculous as like 84, 112-month loans, and at that point, someone's going to be really happy, but it's not going to be the one who just bought the car. So.
I saw a story just last week that there are something like 6 million buyers who have car loans that are over 65 months. And I find that just amazing that you would let someone talk you into, the minute that you drive, as Casey mentioned, the minute you drive that car off the lot, then you're upside down. If you wanted to sell it back or turn it back in a week later, you're already upside down. There's no way that you can get your money back from that sort of loan. So I always thought that 48 months was the longest I'd ever want to get involved in one. If I could, 36 months. But you know, you do have to have a pretty good down payment to buy a new car and just get a 36-month loan out of it. So I go with a 48-month max.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Bill in that regard. 48 months would be the max. We're seeing a lot of activity with the longer-term loans. A lot of people are requesting and wanting the 72 to 84 to 86-month loan, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in the first place. But yeah, 36 to 48 is what I'd keep it at.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. So let's talk about buying cars online. What are some tips that you have, and is financing for an online purchase different than walking into a dealership and buying a car or financing a car off the lot?
I think it's
Bill, can we start with you?
You could. I went online to research cars. I don't really think I could get into buying a car online. I don't think if you're not going to drive the car, if you're not going to feel what it is you have, I can't imagine that you would say, yeah, but I'm getting a really good deal, and hope that the deal that you really got was as good as you thought you did. I don't put much faith in buying an online car. I just don't. I can't trust enough to do that.
Okay.
On the flip side, I totally understand. I would never buy a vehicle without test driving it first. But say that the prospective car shopper were to test drive all the vehicles, go to all the independent dealerships in their area, test drive the vehicle, basically build a car, outfit it with all the options that they want. They get a price, and then they're ready to actually sit down and negotiate the terms of a loan. They can always go online and actually shop around for like I guess like the best rates. But again, I also agree with Bill in the regard that I wouldn't buy a vehicle without test driving it first.
Casey, thoughts?
Yeah, you can always find that car that you want, and then financing online is actually a lot faster, easier. I think you just have to make sure that you trust the lender that you're working with. I know a lot of credit unions now offer online financing, so if you have like a really good relationship with a credit union, you found the car that you want, and you now want to actually get a loan on it, you can just go through your credit union online. It's a lot faster, and then kind of takes that pressure off when you're at the dealership and trying to work out some financing terms.
Okay. Since we're talking about financing, where can consumers secure auto loan financing? Which options do you recommend the most?
Call Casey. I think that you can go online to find about what the rates should be if you know your credit score, and I think Casey mentioned this earlier, that if you come into a dealership armed with that information, if you know what you could get somewhere else, and you ask the dealership and they can't beat that, then you just shake your head and say, listen, I'll finance this elsewhere. I went to a credit union that I had a good relationship with, and I told them, and they were able to beat the best of the prices that I got. But I do like the idea, as Casey mentioned, of going online and shopping around online rather than making 115 phone calls and hoping that you hit one that is satisfactory.
Right on.
Great. Armand, any thoughts?
No, basically share the same sentiment. Your local bank or credit union would probably be the best bet to get the baseline.
Okay.
In regards to the rate that you could kind of like secure.
Great, fantastic. So, auto loan process is something that even I've bought cars. I bought multiple cars and I still don't fully understand it. How would you quickly or easily kind of narrow it down to somebody who has never financed a car before, like the process of getting an auto loan? How would you kind of break that down for somebody who's going to be financing for the first time?
Oh, right.
Well, it usually starts with that credit check. When you're getting ready to finance, the first thing is you're going to have your credit check to determine kind of what tier you fall into in terms of financing rates. And then at that point, it's up to the lender to evaluate your creditworthiness, your risk level as a borrower, and they're going to give you an offer. You don't necessarily have to take it. You can negotiate. And then in terms of working with the dealership, they're actually not the ones usually who are actually loaning you the money. They're kind of a third party who works with another financing company, which is also why you're going to find slightly higher rates usually at a dealership, because they kind of have to tack on a couple of %. So they actually make money as acting as that middleman. But then once you have that loan, you don't actually own the car until it's gone. So.
Yeah. Armand? Thanks, Armand. Any thoughts? No. She wrapped it up pretty well.
Yeah.
Great.
It's not difficult. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. So what's the difference, if someone was to ask you the difference between leasing and financing a car? What's a better option? Does it matter? Is it dependent on whether or not a car is new or used, or what's the difference, and what's a better? How does someone determine if they should lease a car, for a 3-year term, or finance a car and buy it?
It depends. We get the question a lot between, should I lease a car or should I buy it? You just you have to be realistic, be honest with yourself. Are you the person that wants, the newest, shiniest, latest, most up-to-date vehicle every couple of years? Do you yearn for that every couple of years? If so, leasing would probably be the better option. Basically, leasing, you're just paying for the depreciation on an annualized basis. You're not necessarily renting it, but you're paying for the depreciation up front. You have the option to actually buy down the line after the lease is over. But at the same time, the thing with the lease that kind of scares a lot of people over is the mileage limit. A lot of the times with leased vehicles, you can only drive them for up to 12,000 miles annually. If you drive over 12,000, which I know quite a few people that actually do, drive 15,000, 16,000 miles a year, financing and buying a vehicle would be a better option. Looking at all the vehicles that are available right now on the market, the sportier, more luxury-based vehicles, I'd be a little bit more keen on leasing those than owning them past the 5-year mark. A lot of times there's a reason why those warranties run out after 60 months. It's because that's when the bigger repairs come to fruition. They rear their ugly heads. If you're buying something like a Toyota Camry or Honda Accord, probably be more willing to actually own that over the course, over the course of you actually wanting a vehicle.
Great.
If you, I agree with Armand. If you're really that hung up on your car being your status symbol and being who defines you, then maybe a lease is for you. But I always thought of a rent, and you say, I thought, oh, you're just renting the car. That's what it felt like when I discussed this one time. I'm just renting this car. There's really no value in this car for me at all, and there's never going to be. Never. I was never going to treat it as my car because I was just going to be giving it back. And I might do things to it and with it that I wouldn't do if I owned it. So I'm a fan of buy it, own it, take care of it, and of course, in my case, driving my '94 Toyota, I've taken care of it for a long time. I'm a fan of having them for a long time. They just get me from point A to point B, and I don't really care what it looks like getting me there.
Right. Well put.
Thanks. Casey, any thoughts before we move on?
I mean, I've never really understood the value of leasing over buying. Maybe that's because I've never really been able to afford to lease a car. So if I were a baller, that would change. But I think I like ownership. I think if you're going to spend the money, you should own it.
Okay. Great.
Preference, though.
Thank you, guys. And last question. So we see, trends in cars. We had, a few years ago, Hummers were popular cars, and then we moved on to hybrid cars, and we have electric cars coming on. What do you see in the next 5 years? Where do you see the trend of the next generation of vehicles going? Do you think people are going to keep buying more hybrid cars or electric cars, or they're going? So what are your thoughts on the trend for the next few years, as far as car buying and car ownership?
I feel like Armand has a lot to say on this topic.
I got a little, yeah. Obviously, fuel efficiency is going to play a massive role in the next 5 years. You got manufacturers like Mitsubishi. In the next 10 years, their entire lineup is going to consist primarily of EVs or electric vehicles, meaning they're getting rid of the traditional combustion engine powered vehicle. That's huge news for a manufacturer to come out and say that. Obviously, Toyota's led the push with hybrid vehicles. Nissan with the Leaf has done a really good job, as well as Chevy with the Volt. People are going to be, you're going to have their opinion on, whether or not the Volt's actually hybrid or EV. Either way, it's just they're developing these vehicles because people are demanding them. The price of oil is going to play a huge role as well. I don't see oil dropping down or fuel prices dropping down below $3 a gallon anytime soon. So definitely vehicles in the next 5 years, people are going to really, really concentrate on getting the most fuel-efficient vehicle possible. And the only way you can do that is actually to have a hybrid or a full-blown electric vehicle. Again, the constraint for EVs is going to be battery technology and stability. And, even today's, traditional gasoline-powered vehicles are extremely fuel efficient. Combustion engine's been around for 100 years. Electric vehicles are just barely taking off. They're still in their infancy stage, in my opinion. So yeah, next 5 years you're going to see a lot more hybrids, a lot more EVs.
Yeah, I feel like fuel efficiency is kind of an expectation now, really. we've come a long way, and even cars, just traditional vehicles, seem to be a lot more fuel efficient than they were in the past. And I'm also, are muscle cars making a comeback? I'm seeing them a lot. I bought one.
What'd you buy?
It seems like a thing. I got a Challenger.
Oh, nice.
2011.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. We're seeing that.
It's not fuel efficient. It's not fuel efficient at all. So
So
but it's better than
that's
like
really where the future is. Yeah, I was there in 1973 when the oil crisis first hit. America's, from my viewpoint, America's view of cars still hasn't changed. I would like it all to go to electric, but the oil companies have us around the throat. When they think that we are going to become fuel efficient, they lower the price of gas enough to get us throwing more gas into a muscle car because, well, price of gas is really not that high in comparison to everything else, and it hadn't changed that. But when they want to, they jump the price up over $4 or whatever it is a gallon, and then we start thinking, oh, I want smaller. I don't know anyone. My son honestly believes that his generation wants electric cars and that they want to do away with combustion engine cars. No one in my generation does. None. Zero. No one that I know of over 40 does. There are a few people under 40, I suspect, who would, but it's still at least a generation away before we go away from muscle cars. Any car that can go fast, in a hurry, and be powerful. I think Americans just love it too much.
They need to make fuel-efficient cars look better. Like, why does it have to be ugly to be fuel efficient? If they work on that, I think we'll make some progress.
Well, what do you think about, like you said, like fuel-efficient cars look ugly? What about the Tesla Model S? How do you think that vehicle looks?
Oh yeah, because I'm going to go buy a Tesla.
Well, they're working on it. Again, it's in its infancy stage. The price of something like that. Right. It'll get lower. The prices will go lower.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time.
The people who care, meaning the people that have money, they're the ones that have to drive the price down by buying enough of them so that the rest of us, the price can come down far enough that the rest of us can conceivably consider buying one. But we can't afford the Tesla now. It's not even a consideration. So it's a laughing matter.
Right.
Great. Thank you, guys. Those are all the questions that we had. So I just want to, if you guys have any final thoughts that you want to share with our audience before we wrap up, Armand, let's start with you. Thank you so much for answering our questions.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me as part of this Google Hangout. So it's our first time actually participating in one. I guess the main thing would be do your homework. There's a wealth of information available now. When I was shopping for my first car, you could go to a couple sites here and there, but there wasn't nearly as much information as there is today on shopping for a car and actually outfitting it. Build the car exactly how you want it. You can go to any site, really. You can go to CarsDirect. You can go to the manufacturer site itself. But outfit the car with everything that you want. And be realistic. Separate your needs from your wants. And that way you're really comparing apples to apples when it comes to pricing. And just stick to your guns.
Okay. Bill?
Well, I would like to say that, as I have to say this, of course, to my sons, and I will say it to everyone else, you buy a new car today, tomorrow you have a used car. Remember, these are just vehicles to take you from point A to point B. Don't overwhelm yourself with how great your car is. It's only great for a day. And then it's a used car, and it just becomes, another item that you've got to maintain and keep up. Don't go overboard with what you do. Let people like Armand and Casey help you get the best car that you can easily afford.
Thank you, Bill. Casey, final thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just say that a new car is not a necessity. It's a privilege to have. You don't have to drive a new car. You don't have to finance a car. So definitely don't use the fact that you need transportation as an excuse to go and overextend yourself. It's nice to have a new car, but you don't need it.
Right. Thank you. And thanks again for all of you for participating and everybody who's tuned in. We really appreciate your time. We are going to be posting all of the participants' information for their websites and social media and the MoneyCrashers.com info on the Google Plus event, so you can continue this conversation online. And if you have any questions for our participants that you didn't think of before to hang out, I'm sure that if you interact with us online, we will be more than happy to help you. So thanks again to Bill, Casey, and Armand for taking the time today to answer our questions. And we will see you guys online and talk to you later.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, MoneyCrashers, for hosting.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.